Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the worst news in crypto, but come on, man. Tell me when crypto doesn't get bad news. Is it FUD? Who knows? Who cares? But Gary the Egg, if he were to be promoted to Treasury Secretary, then he will have a stance on what he thinks about crypto. He does hate crypto. Not me. We're all down for the crypto, ladies and gentlemen, but again, don't shoot the messenger. We're going to be always looking at what one view is saying and how it can impact the marketplace. You can always tell what people are thinking about something based on the way they react to it. And the stock market is the perfect place for that reaction. Well, Gary hates crypto, Bitcoin pumps. That's just the way the game works. But that being said, it is a full moon. How many of you guys are in the moon game? You know what? Talk Analysis, all right, by William D. Garrett, okay? He's another author, not W.D. Garrett. It's a different author, okay, in the trading space. He came up with a principle called Talk Analysis, which focuses on the power of movement in the stock market. So it's quite a complex read, and if you manage to get that book, happy days. The time that I bought the book when it was released or reprinted cost me around $400 to buy from Wiley Publications. And that's a renowned trading company that provides literature on trading, okay? And inside of that book, it speaks about the moon cycles. Some of the greatest stock chart analysts all rely on the moon. Why? Because there's this thing about the moon and human nature. New seasons, new cycles. I mean, why did JP Morgan teach all of the boys back in the day everything about astrology? Well, there's something to it, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll be deemed as a madman if you say that you follow the moon cycles. But, bruv, I ain't seen the moon cycle be wrong. That's the problem. So it's like one of those taboo things. So how do you trade, Tino? I look up. Well, Dow Jones did the same thing, but not with the moon. What he would do is he would go over to the industrial parks and start looking at the chimneys to work out if the steel factories were actually processing steel. In other words, if the chimneys were smoking, contracts were coming in, money was being paid to get steel made. So he would make his investments on that principle. So the moon cycle could be that principle. Who knows? But anyone that's involved in the astrological game of trading, I'd love to know your story on, and also the new blue moon. But anyway, let's park that to the side, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's live stream. So, Bitcoin makes a nice little move to the upside. Word on the street is that a renowned chart is showing a first time break to the downside, which could decide that Bitcoin is more than likely going to keep on marking higher. We'll be diving into this chart very, very shortly in the live streams. More so, it's D-Day pretty much tomorrow. We've got a free day in the marketplace because we don't really have any news coming out, but the market is getting ready for any signs that the FOMC minutes or the Jackson Hole Symposium meeting that's happening on Friday, if there's any clues about the interest rate cuts. How much are we going to get? And it's going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not the markets are going to continue with this rally to the upside, or they're going to take a nice presidential shoe bag to the downside. And for anybody new to the live stream, if you're wondering why I keep saying shoe bag, it's to save me saying naughty words, because it's just, people won't complain about me speaking normally, but they'll have a little bit of a word to say about me saying profanity. So we will park the idea of that, and we'll speak with eloquence. We will speak with the correct terms and the use of vocabulary to get the point across. Me personally, if I had the freedom to say what I wanted to say, it would be, yeah, you get the idea. So what we're going to do today, guys, we're going to break down the charts, we're going to break down the news articles, and we've got quite a bit to go over today. We've got some conflicting stories with cryptocurrency. And quite frankly, the charts will always give you that point of view, all right? Some guy might be negative, one guy might be positive. Put them all together, and then it's happy days, neutral behavior. All right, so opposites attract. You know what the story is. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you are hitting the like button. And if you hit the like button, we might go through altcoins, because there's some altcoins that are getting primed to make some movement. And I know you guys are all down with the altcoin game, especially when Bitcoin is sat on the beach doing nada. So we're going to dive into a few altcoins and having a look at what is moving right now, what's making altcoins move. And this chart that I mentioned at the start of the live stream is going to be a big symbol for why altcoins could be making a move, and maybe altcoin season could be coming into play. Who knows? All right. So like the stream, and if you do think that this is going to be some value to you, subscribe for more shows. With that being said, let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So, global stocks set for the longest win streak of 2024. All right. Now, traders are awaiting Powell's speech on Friday for policy outlook clues. Remember what we said last night. There are algorithms out there working out if any of his words or the tone that he might be coming across with is going to be fueling whether the market's going to continue higher or not. Because remember, we are not too far away from the all-time high with the NASDAQ. Look, we're not too far away, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the S&P, same story. We're only 2.35%. No, actually, it's less than that, ladies and gentlemen. We're 1.5% away from an all-time high on the S&P. So that's what the stock market is pretty much getting ready for. We could get that big blowout to the upside, and then we can see some movement to the upside. Maybe a 22,000 NASDAQ, maybe a 6K S&P. That will be fantastic for us, okay? Now, for the first time in a long time, well, actually, never, gold bars are hitting $1 million for the first time. And the problem that I've got with gold is this. If you go over to gold right now, okay, you can see that it's hitting all-time highs. And the problem with gold going into all-time highs is investors are effectively now going to the news. And you've heard me say this before. When you start seeing gold hitting the news, safe haven mode is getting triggered. So they're like, oh my God, we got to go into gold right now because things are so uncertain. We don't know what's going to be going on. Now, with gold going up like this, there are no vector candles. It's just in price discovery. As Robert put it, buy gold, buy silver, and buy Bitcoin. Gold is outperforming what's going on across the board. It really is. It's outperforming Bitcoin by a long shot in terms of absorbing the fear that is going on in investors' minds. But the problem that we have is commercial hedgers are effectively preparing themselves to see gold make a move to the downside. So we go over to this chart right here, and we type in gold hedgers position. You can see that gold is effectively at an extreme right now, right here on the red bit. And whenever it hits this red bit, it tends to lead to the idea that commercial hedgers are getting ready for gold's price to come down. Now, how far will it come down is a different story, but commercial hedgers are primed and preparing for gold to make a move to the downside per se by this standard deviation in this chart right here, okay? So there's lots of guys short selling gold, all right? So then when you look at gold, you think, yeah, man, gold's moving up. Get excited. It's pumping, it's pumping, it's pumping. Of course it is, because they're now talking about it in the news. And that's probably the worst thing for gold right now. But it may still actually accumulate higher because central bankers are picking up gold. But there will be a little bit of a contraction in gold, principally by commercial hedgers, because they are the smart money and they will always be contrarian to what the bigger picture is. They will always do the opposite of what investors are doing. All right. So those of you that are trading gold, just be very mindful of that. Now, back in that story, the stock market's dream scenario has been revived. Going into it by Market Insider, it says that stocks look like they might be getting the best of both worlds, falling inflation and still strong economy. Investors were spooked briefly about this month after jobs data came in soft, fueling recession fears. Yet recent economic data suggests a soft landing is in sight. So let's just go over and have a look at what the story is with this recession. Check this out. The Philly Fed Recession Probability Index, okay, on a quarterly basis, it works out how likely the recession is going to be coming into play. And this thing right here has been correct so far. It says here that according to the results of the survey of professional forecasters, the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia estimates the probability of a negative SAAR in real GDP of the United States. And in the current quarter, the next 4 quarters, right? So the probability of recession in the next quarter is also called anxious index, which has accurately predicted every recession identified in the National Bureau of Economic Research, okay? So what this says to us right now, so you see this, when you start seeing the recession probability on certain readings, 2020, what happened? COVID, all that madness. It was correct predicting that. It was correct over here. Recession, 94%, 73%, 21% over the next 4 quarters ahead. So it's been doing pretty well at identifying the recessions. And this is the Philly Fed, okay? Right now, you can see where we are. We're at, what, 33%, 36% recession likely in, here we are, right down here. There you go. So next quarter, current quarter, 60% chance of a recession. The next quarter will be 21%, and the 4 quarters ahead, 24% or 25%, which is why Goldman Sachs has effectively cut its rating of the chances of a recession down to 20% from 25%. So it seems like everyone's effectively, favoring the idea that we're going to be missing the recession. But looking at the comments from what you guys said yesterday, it don't look like the US is heading into a recession. It looks like it's already in a recession, ladies and gentlemen. So then we look at this, the NBER recession indicator. So this is from the National Bureau of Research, and this shows us certain variables. Now, when those variables, just by looking at this chart, when it's above 0 or at 0, it's all good. When it's below, it's a problem, which could give us indication of a recession. So over the last year, you can see that we have got a reading here for the industrial production. It's contracting. It's below 0. So that's one reason to believe why we are already in a recession. Next one, we've got this reading here, which is the real manufacturing and trade industry sales. It has been moving up, but it's below 0. And it could be in line with what we believe to be part of a recession buildup. Then we've got this over here, real personal income. It contracted ever so slightly below 0, but now it's gone back to 0, which means that everything's all good in terms of real personal income. Then you've got the yellow line, which is the non-farm payrolls, which the labor market seems to be doing okay, in line with what they're viewing with the economy, and it's at the 0 mark. So from an industrial perspective and from a manufacturing perspective, logic says that we should be already in a recession, okay? But that's where we're going back into this idea over here about the market saying that recent economic data suggests a soft landing is in sight. Now, soft landing means that the impact that the Fed has had in terms of increasing interest rates, what's the impact like on the economy? Well, it looks like it's doing all good. And I just can't believe that the US is missing the idea of a recession. With the US debt clock, I mean, look at this, man. US debt clock over here. It doesn't sit right with me, ladies and gentlemen. How are you missing a recession when your debt's just climbing and climbing and climbing, okay? And then you've got the money supply increasing at the same time. They're printing. So that's how they're getting away with it. And every person in the United States, from the second they are born, already owes $268,000 to the to the government. So happy days right there. Well, it's not really, is it? Which is why, you see, Robert yesterday was talking about the US economy is pretty much done. It's FD'd, it's pants, it's chow chow. Sam, order the taxi for the United States, please. We need to, for the debt, that is. And you couldn't even order one yesterday for me. Anyways, park Sam to the side. In other news, rate cuts. 77% probability that the US central bank will lower the Fed rates by a quarter point between 5 and 5.25%. That's not good in my opinion. We need something bigger than that, which could mean that everything that you're seeing across the board, with gold going up, with Bitcoin moving up, you've got the NASDAQ and the S&P moving up, and the bonds market, let's go to the bonds. You can see the bonds are slowly but trying to work their way back higher. You've got the yields market itself. Where's the yields? Hold on, 2-year yield coming down to significant lows. Remember what we said? Before, that economist, Mohammed, I've forgotten his name, Mohammed Iman or something, he said that the best time for you to start buying stocks is when the yields themselves get to around the 4% mark, okay? With that being said, if you were to buy stocks right now and then you're looking at the NASDAQ and the S&P and you can see that there is a potential for them to actually break out to the upside and we see all-time highs again, then we take that from now going in towards 18th of September when the Federal Reserve does come out with the federal funds rate, say we get a 25 basis point cut. That, in my opinion, ain't enough. It really isn't enough to really make me believe that everyone's going to start borrowing dollars again to then put them to work to start planting it into the US stock market. But when you're looking at the dollar dominance, you can see it's just taken a shoe bag to the downside, finally getting ready to recover the last of the remaining green vectors at the 101 zone. So that means that the dollar's power is only appreciated by 1%. Read it with a reading at 101. You got to ask yourself, especially if you're all Forex traders, how many dollars now can I buy with a strong euro? And we are heading into very important extremes in terms of value. When you've got value in your mind when you're trading Forex, you're going to get a better idea of how likely euro is going to go up against the dollar, okay? Now, with that being said, we're just going to quickly dive into something for my guys in crypto. We're going to start diving into the cryptocurrency story, and then we'll be getting into the charts and what have you. So, in front of you is a list of crypto stocks. Let me just move to the side right here. Take a screenshot of that bad boy. There you go. So, The thing is, right, you can invest in crypto itself, or you can invest in companies that are going to benefit from cryptocurrency. Okay, now these are companies that are listed on the US stock market. You've got CMPO, you've got Bitwise, Advanced Micro Devices, FT Index Innovation Trends, Investco, Galaxy Crypto, Coinbase, Block. And let me just move myself right here because I'm too big. So there is the list right there. And what we're seeing here is as crypto's moving up, these bad boys are moving up too. But the real question that you got to ask yourself is this. Is it because crypto's moving up, or is it because the stock market's moving up? Remember, in these companies right here, the only reason why they're trading positively is because money is going into them. So we go over to Mara itself and have a look at the chart, and you can say to yourself, okay, what's been going on with Marathon? Well, it's trading sideways, $16 a share. These guys are now starting to mine Casper as opposed to Bitcoin. And we've got quite a few negative readings in terms of up here with the current earnings. It's all negative. Sales margin and return on equity, it's doing okay over the last 3 years. 84% increase over the last 3 years in terms of sales growth rate. So that's pretty decent. But again, this has only been marking up because of the stock market and the anticipation of what's going on in the actual space regarding the federal funds rate. Now, in pre-market, it is up 1.76%. It's just zoomed up right now. It's just moved up quite aggressively. And volume's around 840,000. Average daily volume is around 43 million. So we're going to start seeing some activity on Marathon very, very shortly, which could obviously give us an idea why cryptocurrency is moving up. Now, moving on from that, let's get into the space of cryptocurrency. Why does Gary hate crypto? Well, Anthony right here puts it quite simply. He says, Gary Gensler is motivated by aspirations to become Treasury Secretary. That is terrible for cryptocurrency. He's previously said that most cryptocurrencies should be considered securities. Well, he tried that and it flopped. But when you're in a position of power, it might be a little bit of a problem. Now, listen to this. He goes, Gary, you want to be Secretary of Treasury, yes? And he goes, yes, I do. You now hate crypto. And he says, yes, I do. I hate crypto. Gary the Egg. Like, what's your beef, man? Gensler and Sacramucci did not immediately return a request for comment. Go watch 24 hours of his lectures at MIT. Sacramucci continued to referring the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where Gensler taught a course on blockchain, saying he does not hate crypto. Why would he be switching it up right now? I don't know. But quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, Gary, in my opinion, is Gary the Egg. He's probably one of the most hated people in cryptocurrency, and that itself is enough for me to say, I mean, you vote Harris, Gary. You vote Trump, no Gary. So it depends if you like eggs or not, because Gary is the ambassador for eggs. Anyways, moving on. Here it is. This guy right here. You vote Harris, that's the story. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I think everyone in crypto would vote for Trump to avoid this. They may not like Trump, but I think they would do that to avoid that. So, what do you guys think? I mean, politics, man. Can't talk about politics. Anyways, check this out. BlackRock is at it again. 93 million in inflows yesterday. Massive. Okay, cool. Remember, this guy is a vacuum. $10 trillion under assets under management, sorry. He will take anything and everything. If oxygen was an ETF, they'd probably hold most of it. You remember the film Time, I think it is, with Justin Timberlake, when he's got the time on his watch and you know, how they pay in terms of the currency is time, okay? That's where we could go with BlackRock. Call me mad, but you watch The Matrix and you believe that. Tell me why that couldn't be done. Anyways, with that being said, that's good news. BlackRock, ETF, 93 million, no qualms. All right, I'm cool with that. Going over into the actual ETF story itself, you can see that we have got the actual BlackRock. There's not really, I mean, going into the transactions, got a lot of behavior on the actual ETF purchases, but not too many big purchases. We've seen a big one right here on Flow Traders by Fidelity, and $36 million in Bitcoin. No, we don't want to restart now. No, we do not. Click. Anyways, could you imagine? Only I would be able to press OK and it will restart the computer. That would be fantastic. But anyways, so this is where we are so far with the Bitcoin ETFs. 93 million inflows. That's fine. Not really seeing it peak out just yet. But we go over to the actual Bitcoin ETF price, and you can see right now that we've got this problem of this green vector candle region right here, and we've got a couple of more gaps down below. Let me ask your opinion. With everything going up so aggressively in preparation for the Jackson Hole Symposium meeting, if we get bad news, how many of you would be of the impression that everything is getting ready to drop, as in sell the news event? What do you guys think of that? I mean, comment below, man. Let me know, because I read your comments, okay? And some of you come out with some very interesting points. Some of you say some very interesting things. I can't read out. But anyways, that's what's going on with the Bitcoin ETF story. In other news, Japanese public company Metaplant buys another $500 million worth, 500 million yen of Bitcoin. So the number of Bitcoins purchased was 57, and the average price per yen is 8,730,117 yen per Bitcoin. Aggregated amount purchased, 500 million yen. All right, so the total holdings come to around 360. Doesn't look like it's a lot of Bitcoin, but Japanese public company, they're buying Bitcoin. That's only going to encourage people to do what? If they're investors in the company, they're going to be like, oh, wow, should I go and buy some Bitcoin? If these guys are buying Bitcoin, then happy days. So it's always going to be a ripple effect. If one person does something, then you're going to think that everyone else is going to follow. Look at pump and dumps in the altcoin game, all right? You get pumped about a coin, it's going to moon out, happy days, everyone buys it, then you get that rug pull story. Done. And this is more of a legitimate process because there's obviously legislation behind it all. So you've got to be very careful with that. Now, Ethereum, apparently the potential end of a correction. That's what they're saying right here. It says Ethereum drops below 2.6, but analysts predict the end of the correction soon as the market indicators show signs of recovery. In other words, once we know where we are with the federal funds. That's what it is. There is nothing in cryptocurrency right now that is suggestive why crypto is moving up. Everything is moving up right now because we're anticipating the federal funds rate from the Federal Reserve. The Jackson Hole Symposium is going to give us a clue as to whether that's going to be the case or not. But they are tipped to believe that a 25 basis point cut is on the cards. So if they already know that 25 basis points is already happening, okay, then everything's moving up. The moment it actually does it, Fed pivot, drop to the downside. Yo, Jerome, when's the next rate cut? Well, we don't really need to worry about cutting rates. Why? Because the economy is doing pretty well anyway without rate cuts, and it's operating at 5.5%. So why do we need to be bothering about rate cuts? We'll just keep it at that so we can get closer and closer to our mandated target of 2% on inflation. Then the inflation reading comes out a week after or so, and then it comes in and it's increased because tensions overseas, even though there is an Israel ceasefire, that might not be happening still. And you've got even more issues with Russia and Ukraine. So there are many ways that inflation could actually creep back up again. But as long as oil keeps on tanking and China's economy keeps on slowing down, then that's a good reason to believe that investors ain't going to be too concerned about things, or inflation isn't going to go up because of high costs of goods. But I know the goods of services are high. And as Robert put it yesterday, they're giving discounts, mad discounts on lots of things. But then you look at the things that they're giving discount on, and it's like you wouldn't even buy it without the discount in the first place. So there's that as well. Now, more information on hedge funds, all right? These are the disclosed Bitcoin ETF holdings, which sits in line with the whole story of accumulation in Bitcoin, which is why when we get over to the chart on Bitcoin, you can see that it is trading just sideways. We haven't got that much activity happening. Okay, and crypto is boring. How many of you think it's boring? Like the stream if you think it's boring. Now, we exploited Bitcoin yesterday, and in the Asian session update that I do for the Platinum members last night, we gave a projection on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I'm going to talk you through this process of why it's important to try and improve the odds of a trade working in your favor, even though you'll never know if it's going to work indefinitely for you. Take away the idea of indefinite guaranteed success of a trade and look at it from a probabilistic point of view. In other words, if one thing is happening, then it's more than likely that something else isn't going to happen. All right. So we were looking for last night in the Asian session. We were expecting Solana to make a pump to the upside to clear out the 146 zone. So this is for the Platinum members. And if you're not a Platinum member, go and check it out. You get a 20% discount in the membership where you get access to all sorts of fun and games with the Platinum membership. So we just go over to it. This one right here, you get 20% off your first month. You get 5 trade setups per week, and that's in the morning before New York, and then at the end of the day in time for Asia. It's actually 3. So straight off this live stream, I'm going to contact the guys and let them know what I think is going to be happening next. But prior to that, I already gave them the setups. So it's a bit of a breakdown on what to expect in New York in line with the setups that we've already put out. And then at the end of the live tonight, we'll do the Asian session, which is exactly what we did last night. And we saw the success of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana clearing out those ranges. So where's Solana right here? So here was Solana's move last night. We were on the 5-minute time frame, and we were looking for Solana to come back into the vector candle. Now, this is where we were in line with the update itself. Where is it here? That's when the update came out, and we said that as long as they can stay within this block region right here, we were going to be expecting Solana to make a move to the upside to recover the vector candle and take out the Asian session high for Monday, which is right here at a 145. The same way it is for Bitcoin as well over here. We saw Bitcoin make that beautiful move to the upside, and the update came in line around here, and then they just swept it out to the upside. So those guys must have made a penny or two, and quite frankly, I believe that the membership itself gets paid for. And you're pretty much getting access to that free of charge if you're taking the setups. We don't win every day, but you are, and I'm being straight with you all, okay? You don't win every single trade, but I do it across 6 asset classes. So if you're not getting the success on one trade, on one account, on one asset, you can go elsewhere and navigate where you could effectively hedge yourself. Because if you're not hedging yourself against risk, then you're not really getting the idea of trading. You've got to protect yourself, not just by risk management, but also by playing a hedge as well. And that's why those assets that I do, Euro, Gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, NASDAQ, they are all assets that you can effectively trade. They are positively correlated, but at the same time, you can exploit hedges in some of them because sometimes Euro will shoot up, but Bitcoin will go down, okay? So just take that into consideration when you are taking on that new membership. It's new member is pinned to the top of the chat as the discount code. So go ahead and use that bad boy, okay? So there's the success of that one right there. And the same for Ethereum as well. I mean, Ethereum is coming down right now, which is perfect for us. And again, Asian session high, Asian session low for Monday are very important points in the chart for them, for the start of the trading week. Now, just before we get into the open of the marketplace, here is the story I'm talking about as to why the altcoins could effectively get ready for some movement. Now, when you're looking at altcoins, you go over to this chart right here, or Jenny Data, and it just shows you where the volume is right now on certain altcoins. You got BTTC/USDT, which sounds like BTCC over here. These guys right here, but it's not. And if you are new, and I've got some news about this as well, guys. BTCC itself is great for anyone in the United States that wants to trade without VPN or KYC. All right, so that's in the description of this live stream. So if you want to join these guys, been around for 13 years, 225x leverage, don't use all of it, but it gives you the flexibility to use a lot of leverage and 10% deposit bonus. But more importantly, once you join this, take advantage of the trading competition. There's 91 participants right now, and you can see that we've got some guys here that are sitting very nicely in terms of the trading volume that's coming into play, but it finishes in 16 days, so get yourself involved in that. You join BTCC, and then you can click register, and then you're able to trade. It automatically registers you for it. So you've got to join BTCC, and then join over here by just clicking register. That's in the description. But what we've got to do here now is, in terms of the altcoins themselves, you've got to be mindful that this chart here has broken the USDT dominance. It's broken a trend. It says here that altcoin market value dropped 1.27 trillion to 890 billion since 289 billion since March 2024. So we've lost a lot of money, but the USDT broke a 5-year uptrend, potentially signaling an up-and-coming altcoin market rally. So here is the image right here that the gentleman is making reference to. So mustache, altcoins, it's a boring time, you're damn right. And it says USDT down, cryptocurrency up. Where have you heard that before, ladies and gentlemen? You've heard it over here. Dollar dominance down, cryptocurrency should be up. So we go over to the USDT chart itself and have a look. So when you're using the USDT dominance chart, the best thing for you to do, guys, is to think of it in terms of psychology, all right? So when we look at it from green and blue vector candles, one would make the assumption that last night, lots of guys exchanged dollars into Bitcoin. That's why the chart's gone down and there was big imbalance right there. The logic would say that if there is going to be profit taking, you'd assume that they're going to convert it back and then they're going to bring it back up to here. So USDT principally should be coming up to 5.65% because psychologically traders that were there, that were buying the Bitcoin are going to probably want to take some profits, which will naturally lead it to mark up again, which then effectively could lead it to continue back down again if we are in what we call the rally to the upside. Now, looking left, you can see that we got some vector candles over here that they haven't fully recovered. So 5.5% might be a spot. And then down here, we've got this wick at 5.45%. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm expecting the USDT chart to take us down to 5.28%, which in principle should take us to the all-time high for Bitcoin. Okay? That is where the logic says. All-time high Bitcoin, if it hits 5.28%. You heard it here. Then, if it really does pick up steam, 85K Bitcoin will take us towards 5% USDT. And that's only because there have been people that went into USDT and now they're going to want to get back into crypto, which is why we believe the idea that Bitcoin could be getting ready and primed to make a significant move to the upside, coming in line with the federal funds rate and the hype behind it, okay? But look, this is a small range. Remember what I said to you all? Vector to vector. You're going to get this until the Fed cut. The Jackson Hole Symposium might actually bring the flavor to it, okay? But we are trading vector to vector, all right? So that probably will explain why the altcoin market is probably going to make a move because Bitcoin really isn't doing too much. Going into the Bitcoin dominance chart itself, you can see it's trading sideways and it could actually come back down a little bit. We've got a vector candle region up here that I'll expect them to try and go and attack, which will naturally bring Bitcoin higher. Looking at the volume of the altcoins, I'm not really seeing anything significant other than Doge. Bond is showing a lot of sell-off. Looking at the volumes over here with Bitcoin and Ethereum, not really seeing that much of a sell-off, which is telling me that there's not that much activity on exchanges for investors or traders right now. Quickly taking it lower and having a look at what altcoins are actually making a move. Who the hell is banging the door? Sam, will you stop banging the door, bro? He has no brain, man. Why would you let that door close? BNB. Trading to the upside right now, $568 a coin right now. It's doing very, very well. And when BNB is moving up, remember, BNB is part of the Binance Smart Chain. It's the main native coin, okay? So if there's activity on BNB, it means people are effectively staking and putting money to work. DeFi volumes, total value locked, is actually increasing right now, if I'm correct. It's now above 71 billion. So it's going to be an interesting story. Once the altcoin market starts going into play, we start seeing people staking and getting a little bit more aggressive with that flavor, which will naturally lead the altcoin market to start climbing higher. Going over into my altcoins boss list over here, having a look at some altcoins that are actually performing pretty well. So what we got, 32% increase on AMP. Alice is moving up. How many likes we got in this live stream? 424 likes. Get the likes to 1,000 likes. I'll start pulling out some of your coins that you give me in the chat itself. All right? Get to 1,000 likes and I'll start looking at altcoins that you want me to look at for about 5 minutes and then we can get the party started. Okay? Actually, I'm going to do that once we hit 1,000 likes. In the meantime, we're going to look at Bitcoin. All right? Here we go. Go back into Bitcoin. Having a look at that from this perspective. We've got Bitcoin coming down ever so slightly. Just going over to here. Having a look at where we are in terms of the depth of market. So what we got right here, ladies and gentlemen, is... Who's this? This is the depth of market, the order flow for Bitcoin, and this is going to help, and Ethereum, and this is going to help us understand where we are in terms of where people are happy to buy and sell. Now, right now, Bitcoin's daily profile for my guys is currently set at the point of control with 3,600 contracts, okay? Top side of the profile takes us to 61,377. Okay, bottom side of the contract takes us all the way down to 59,310. Looking at this from the perspective of bids and offers, we zoom out. We want to have a look at where we are technically with regards to activity in the exchanges. Now, the purpose of an exchange is to make sure that it provides the liquidity for the market maker to give the liquidity back. Market makers are liquidity providers. And if you don't know who a market maker is, go and take this free course. It's on the Traders Reality website. And you've got a whole section on market makers. You click that bad boy and it shows you who the market makers are. You remember Alameda Research? Some of you that are coming into cryptocurrency right now might not know who that company is. But we talk about it in here. The Titans of Finance. That's what the story is on this. I enjoyed doing this free course right here. And you get a cool little PDF where it breaks it all down. The types of market makers, the role of market makers. But more importantly, when you do this course, you're going to understand what I'm talking about when I'm making references to the vector candles and the green vectors and the moving averages and the sessions and what have you. You want more of that, go into the Discord. It's packed with information, packed with people that know this story inside out, all right? That course is free. Just do it, all right? Now, going back into that story, okay? What was I talking about? XO. Here we go. So right now, we've got the two areas, 59,325 and the top side over here at 61,377. What does that look like from the perspective of guys buying and selling? Well, if you remember yesterday, we were talking about the bids and the offers and the history of liquidations. Now, looking at the day's chart, you can see that we've got activity on the taker in terms of buy and sell volume. It's starting to increase over here, all right? So that's good news. Down here, you've got the aggregated liquidations. Lots of shorts have been liquidated on this move to the upside. But prior to that, all we've had is just longs getting liquidated. So if I just step away from this, man, I got to sort this out. If I step away and look, there have been longs liquidated in this move to the downside, some more longs up here, and then you can see the green readings down below here are suggesting that there's more long liquidations getting taken. And when they hit long liquidations quite significantly, there has to be a time when the market needs to go and change in the opposite direction. Why? Because as I said a moment ago, exchanges are effectively obligated to make sure that they fulfill their agreement with the market makers. That means they've got to supply people into the market makers' liquidity. So when you're buying on Binance, okay, your order is effectively getting matched with the market maker. The market maker supplies the liquidity back to your position, and you've got yourself now a leveraged trade. Binance is in the middle as the mediator, the guy who says, here you go, here, got these people, here you go, this is the people that you need to take to the slaughterhouse, get them sorted out, yeah, happy days. Market maker then says, thank you very much, sir, and then they've got this agreement in place which says, we charge X amount of percentage for you doing this business for us. Thank you very much, Mr. Market Maker. Binance is happy days, and then you've got the trader on the right, left over here, who is like, Bitcoin to the moon, 100x, I'm living the top life. That's what that story is, okay? What we've got to work out is how likely is price going to go to one point against the other? What's it going to do first? Well, we'll never know what it's going to do first, but what we can get is a concentration of orders at one specific level will give us a clue as to how likely it's going to go to the next. Now, down here, this is the 58,000 zone. Lots of longs are being liquidated. The principle says that we're going to start seeing the shorts getting liquidated, which is what they've done, okay? Now, Bitcoin is pulling back ever so slightly, but we've just had a lot of orders getting clipped in this area. That means people have been selling, not buying. They've been selling. Why? Because when prices rise, someone has to buy in order for someone to sell, and vice versa. Get that in your brains when you're looking at the chart. When Bitcoin's dropping down, don't be like, oh my God, it's dropping. We're losing money. It's collapsing. They're selling the Bitcoin. Yeah, the chump traders are selling the Bitcoin. The guys who are weak, the guys who go onto X and be worrying about who's saying what. They can only sell if someone buys. It's the guys over looking over the shoulder. It's like, are they selling? Are they selling? Yeah. All right, give it to me. Give me the flow. I'll buy it. Yeah, no problem. You give me your Bitcoin. Thank you, sir. I'll bag that bad boy. I'll bag that bad boy. That explains why you've got BlackRock right here picking up, not Google, but BlackRock. Did you hear about that? Gemini, absolutely smashing it. ChatGPT is done and dusted. And then when they actually did the conference introducing this, it flopped twice. But anyway, you got to give them some slack. But there, BlackRock is picking everything up. All right? They're buying the Bitcoin. So when you are looking at the charts, ladies and gentlemen, you got to say to yourself, well, what are we going into right now? It's coming back down. Well, what you got down here, you got some dudes that are going to get liquidated because they bought Bitcoin last night and they pumped. They're excited. The weak hands have been buying the Bitcoin. They've been getting sold to. Look at this, man. 4.42 million was bought, sold at 59,950. Someone had to be buying in that point for that person to get that sell order. When you understand that, you're not going to get caught out in the madness, okay? Right now, we've got Bitcoin looking like it wants to try and come and attack some of these liquidation points right here, which naturally is going to be encouraging traders to believe that this 50, 60,000 zone is the wall and there's no more Bitcoin movement to the upside, because that's what they're saying. But there is liquidity up there for them to go and have. And the more liquidations that the market maker can get in the charts, that means margins that are believing price is going to go lower. He's supplying that liquidity. In one instance, he's going to go back and get his money. Remember, when you're using leverage, you're borrowing money. Why do you think they give you those funding rates? Funding rates right now are skewed to the idea that there are many people going short on Bitcoin. Well, they ain't exactly having a nice time now, are they? Now they're going to be doing what? Adding to their margins and increasing the chances that they're not going to get liquidated. But Bitcoin likes to make a nice move at some instance, and that can shake them out. Look, 5 million traded when the initial order was 2.34 million. That tells you that people are trying to sell. They're trying to sell, but we're seeing it differently in the chart because Bitcoin is in principle going up. And I've said it, it's going vector to vector, but it looks like it's finding resistances at this 800 EMA. There's a bit of a problem with this range, but you're trading a macro event because of what's going on this week. Nothing's going to move cryptocurrency up other than the idea of cheaper interest rates. Ain't going to be no whale, ain't going to be no on-chain analytics over here. None of that. It's all going to be, why should I change my dollars? And is it worth me changing my dollars? Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, you're probably damn right. You should be changing your dollars because that bad boy is only appreciated by 1.2% right now. That's a problem. Okay? Other assets against it are going to be trading way better. Look at the euro. The euro's trading at significant highs right now. I can get lots of dollars with my euros. I could even get lots of Bitcoin with my euros. So that's something very important. Now, quickly going into it all. The depth of market is suggesting to us, I hope that makes sense to you all. The depth of market is giving us a profile of where we can expect Bitcoin to run towards. This one right here on the right is a 25-day profile. The top side of the 25-day profile, Sam, I'm going to break your face, bro. Close the door, man. It's windy, and he leaves the doors open. What a guy, man. Oh, I can't wait to get off this live. I'm going to rearrange his face. Not for the benefit. I'm not aggressive. I'm just Greek. Top side of this profile says 65,496. There's dead traders up there. No one's up there. They're waiting up there with longs. That's the sad truth. But if it all works out favorably for Bitcoin, then we could actually end up seeing a 65K Bitcoin come in the near future, and the Jackson Hole Symposium could be bringing that. And right now, the only profiles that we've got right here with Bitcoin on this profile chart here are suggesting that the 61,000 is a wall, but that is also a point of control on the 25-day profile for Bitcoin. 61,000 over here shows us that there's no point of control. So over the day, there's only been 1,000 contracts transacted, not even 1,000 contracts contracted at that point of the 61,000. But when we get towards the 25-day profile, you can see there's at 61,000, just below that, you've got 12,000 contracts. So when you're looking at it from a daily perspective, it looks like there's not that much activity. But then when you see price getting towards that point, you then all of a sudden see price exploding away from that range. And you're trying to make sense why. Well, then you go over to the 25-day profile and you can say to yourself, you know what? That makes sense because there was a lot of transactions happening at that point, which would then justify a break through the 61 zone. Okay? So whether you're using this stuff here to understand, it looks crazy with all the numbers and what have you. And for the day trader, you really got to pay attention to the amount of orders that are coming in at specific points. And the idea now is Bitcoin for the day is trading at an area of value, which means that there's no real attempt to the upside nor to the downside. Looking at the profile, you see there's traders trapped up here, and then you've got traders down here. So the fact is, for the day's profile, it has made a move to the downside, but then reversed from that point and aggressively moved higher. What we need to see is we need to see the area of value where you see 2,000 contracts, 3,000, 4,000. That area needs to sustain itself and build more and more contracts, which shows more and more interest that people are bidding, buying in this range to suggest that Bitcoin's going to clear the highs and then try and take out the 61,000 zone. That's the way we use this information. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you all. What's Bitcoin doing now? It's doing all right. It's all right. Any questions? Trick is no one is there. What are you talking about? Everyone's here. My name is Barry and okay, Barry. Happy days, Barry. Everybody that watches the stream, hit the like. Guys, you don't want your altcoins. I'm guessing you don't want your altcoins, so we got 595 likes. You don't want your altcoins, we won't talk about altcoins. We'll just stick to Bitcoin. Make your decision, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions? It's 1:45. What's your take on Warren Buffett withdrawing from the market when everyone is plunging in? Follow the money? Quite frankly, yeah. He sold 50% of his stake in Apple. That's $85 billion. Sold 50%, and Apple is very close to his heart. He likes Apple, all right? But he sold half the stake. Because you've got high interest rates, which logically tells you that yields are high, which means it's going to cost more money to do business. Now, when you've got problems in China, and given that Apple requires China to build all these iPhones, if there's activity slowing down over there, it's not going to be looking good for Apple, all right? Maybe he's taken 50% of that stake. He might start going into other companies that are involved in data mining and cloud-based systems. You don't know. But Buffett has invested in Apple because of innovation, and they're always getting ready to do the next best thing. Maybe he's pulling away from that because he doesn't think that they may have peaked out. He now needs to start looking at a different type of marketplace. Okay. What else have we got? What do you think? When do you think the Bitcoin peak is going to be for this run? Well, the weatherman can't tell you what the weather's going to be like in the next 2 months. He'll tell you what it's like tomorrow. He'll tell you what it could be like in the next 3 days. But in a week and a half's time or 2 weeks' time, he can't guarantee to you that the weather's going to be exactly what he says it's going to be. Okay? As a forecast, you've got to take what we've got right now in the charts and say to yourself, logically, guys, you want your altcoins? I've got 1,500 people in here. Mad love and respect to you all. If you want your altcoins, like the stream to get it to 1,000 likes, and then we happy days go into some altcoins, all right? But you've got to look at it like this. Don't look at when will Bitcoin get to a specific point. I've given you my logic that I believe Bitcoin's going to hit $80,000 to $85,000 a coin by the time we get to the Fed cut, which will be in September. All right? It's not too far away from that point, but I'm giving you a logical explanation that 85K could be the point that Bitcoin contracts from once we get the Fed cut, because then that will be in line with the Fed pivot, which historically shows that the markets tend to contract during that time. But we might get a double whammy here. If the market sees that we're getting 25 basis points cut and everything's moving up right now, yet Bitcoin's not really moving up as aggressively, it could mean that once we get September rate cut and it's 25 basis points, Bitcoin then pulls back down aggressively from the 85K region. It doesn't have to hit 85K. I'm using the idea of the biggest macro event coming into the space to suggest that Bitcoin is more than likely going to start moving higher towards that point. So, what other macro event would you have after that? Other than a black swan event that you'll never know is going to occur, taking into consideration Bitcoin from a technical point of view, it will be flawed to assume Bitcoin's going to get to a specific price point without understanding where we are from the macro perspective, okay? Because you've got to factor that in. We then got to factor in, what's the business or the economy going to be like when they cut the interest rates? Will we then get a surge of unemployment? Okay, what's going to happen in the manufacturing sector? Even though they've cut the interest rates, how effective is the soft landing going to be? What if it's going to be a hard landing from the second they cut the interest rates and we then see the true impact of what it's actually all about? And then inflation shoots up. Again, Bitcoin is tethered to the market, the stock market. Whether you like to admit it or not, it is. And those of you that think it isn't, comment below and tell me why it's not tethered to the stock market. Don't give me decentralization. Sorry, there's no decentralization. We're now relying on Wall Street for Bitcoin's pump. That's it. If decentralization was about, we'd be relying on guys in cryptocurrency to pick up as much cryptocurrency as much as they physically can. But they're not. We have to rely on Larry to buy it. Capiche? Anything else? What? Average? What are you talking about my height now? I'm trying to give... Mike, why are you talking about my height? I'm pretty tall. I'm 5'10", 5'11". And that's with the slippers, the shoes. I nearly said heels, bro. Start by becoming the world's best Suvlagi chef. Yeah, baby. The Suvlagia. Happy days. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Full Moon Boone, Gary the Egg, curious outlook for S&P long-term, i.e. market crash theory, bro. I'm expecting that if the market reacts aggressively to the idea of interest rate cuts and they're like happy with 25 basis points, which I don't think they will be, I believe that NASDAQ and the S&P are going to finish at 6K by the time we get to, I mean, it's a bit of a steep one, but if we get to 6K beforehand, like looking at the S&P right now, there are options in the S&P that are calling for 5,750 S&P, which is only 1.5% away from 5,725, okay, which will then give us to that unbelievable high of 6,000, which when you look at it from that perspective, from now to 6,000
is only a 6%, 6.5% increase on the S&P. That's plenty. There's there's a great opportunity for it to get to that, because you can have days where it's up 2%. All right. And that's good accumulation days. All we need to start seeing is earnings from companies coming out on the quarter suggesting that everything's okay. All right. So it's really important that we do actually see that coming into play to get to that 6,000. I believe 6,000 S&P. And I'm currently playing options on the S&P to get towards 6,000. That's what I'm looking at. Okay. Monthly options. Do you think there is a correlation between Bitcoin liquidation, heat map, and ask bid profile on the CoinAnk? Yes, there is. I did a breakdown in the Market Watch that I did for the Platinum members. Again, if you're not part of that, go and check out the Platinum membership. A Market Watch video gave a macro breakdown of what I expect to happen throughout this week, factoring in the Jackson Hole Symposium. But I also gave a bit of a breakdown on understanding why historical liquidations are very important for us to understand how likely price is going to go up to one point or the other. There's a big deep dive on that bad boy, so you'll understand where we're going with that, because for me to talk about it now will be another hour in this chart and this conversation, and that's not really, I don't want the live to be too long, which it is already. With that being said, you ain't hit 1,000 likes. Sorry about the altcoins, ladies and gentlemen. If you are new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, on the way out, and I will be checking in with you all later on this evening. Trade safely, ladies and gentlemen. Bitcoin might just pull a very interesting number. Take care of yourselves, gang. Mad love. Peace.